In this lesson we'll be working rows of treble stitches. This is called a double crochet in US terms, and it's the equivalent in height to 3 chains. Let's begin by looking at a stitch diagram for working rows of 8 trebles. We'll start with a foundation row of 8 chains. Treble stitches are the height of 3 chains, so row 1 will begin with 3 chains, and these don't actually count as a stitch, it simply gets us to the height of the row. A treble is worked into each of the 8 chains in the foundation row. Row 2 begins with 3 chains, and a treble is worked into each of the 8 trebles in row 1. Row 3 begins with 3 chains, and a treble is worked into each of the trebles in row 2. At least, this is the theory. In practice, I find that this can give quite a loose and untidy edge. If you find your edges are a bit wobbly, you could reduce your chains at the beginning of each row to 2. This really is down to personal preference. So let's start crocheting. We'll begin with a slip knot and chains. I'm working with a foundation row of 15 chains. And then row 1 will begin with either 3 or 2 chains. We need to identify the chain that we'll work the first treble into. So if we're starting with 3 chains, we'll count 3 chains back from the working stitch and begin the first treble in the 4th chain from the hook. Before inserting the hook into this chain, wrap the yarn around the hook, yarn over, then insert the hook into the chain. Push the hook all the way through, then yarn over again and draw it through the chain. You now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and draw the thread just through the first 2 loops on your hook. You'll be left with 2 loops on your hook, yarn over again and draw the thread through these 2 loops. Let's do that again. Yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain stitch. Yarn over and draw the thread through the chain stitch. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and draw this through the first 2 loops. Yarn over again and draw this through the next 2 loops on your hook. Continue to work a treble stitch into every chain, so that's 15 trebles in total. And then pause at the end of the row to count your stitches. Now turn your work around and work 3 chains, or 2 if you prefer a tighter edge. Yarn over and locate the stitch where you'll work your first treble. This will be the very last treble that you worked on row 1. Be sure to work into the whole stitch. This means that you'll go through the top 2 threads of the stitch. Insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over and draw it through the stitch. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and draw this thread through the first 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and draw the thread through the next 2 loops on your hook. Locate the next stitch and continue to work a treble stitch into every stitch to the end of the row. I'll be working 15 trebles in total, and remember that in this tutorial the chains at the beginning of the row don't count as a stitch. Turn your work around and work your chains, either 2 or 3 depending on your preference. Locate the correct stitch to start row 3 and continue to work 15 trebles, 1 into each treble on row 2. Repeat these rows to practice your treble stitches. Remember to keep your stitch count accurate and be consistent with the number of chains at the beginning of each row to make your edges straight. When you've worked your last treble, cut the thread and pull the end through the last working stitch to fasten off.